Hi, welcome to day one of the 9 candles going up to the equinox, which will be on the 20th. And today my guest is Dorothy Morgan. And Dorothy, if you do not know her, hop on over to Dorothy Morgan Astrologer and see her stuff. She does daily readings. She does marvelous personal charts. She's actually done my chart, and I had
Hmm.
studied astrology a long time ago, and she does a marvelous interpretation and something you can really relate to. I've even sent people who say, "Oh my God, I don't want to talk about squares or angles or sextiles. That reminds me of geometry. I don't want to hear about that."
Hmm.
Dorothy takes all the mystery out of all that stuff. Of course, all of life's a little bit of a mystery, but she
Hmm.
does her best. And she does a really good job of keeping it personal so that you can use the information. So, do you want to say
Yeah.
hi, Dorothy? And
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, that's right. It's great. Great description. Thank you. It's my
okay.
job. I love that. That's it being the sign I am. I'm a Gemini, so it's a
Oh, yeah.
personal sign, right? So,
Hmm.
well, there's plenty of things going on in the world, and we can look at the big picture, which is beautiful and wonderful, especially if you love it. But yeah, my whole focus. I don't put my head in the sand, but my whole focus is how can we use for us what's
Okay.
going on today. Yeah, yeah,
And we got a whole
exactly.
lot going on. So,
We
with
do.
that, we're going to cut to the table. And
Yes.
this is the 9 candles. I have not begun to, well, I'll light one candle for Dorothy today. And then each day I light the candle from the day before the next one until all 9 are lit up. If you're lighting along with me, you can have 9 candles. You can have one candle you just light every day, whatever you choose to do. Our candles usually have always been red before now, but this time they're green because they're cactuses. And we'll get into that. That's got some meaning planetarily, weirdly enough. Not that there's cactuses on the planets that we know of, just this one. But the other thing is, I always put stones in the middle that help sort of ground the energy. And because we're out in the land of cactuses, I found these are selenite, and they're called desert roses. And this one is
Mm.
actually a true desert rose. This is done by the wind. That's not carved by a person. That's what happens when the winds swirl around you in Oklahoma, and you've got a certain kind of rock formation. So they come as, they call them desert roses, where they look like little roses. They also have ones that look like just little tumbleweeds. They're just all cut up by
Mm.
the wind. And then that was just, you can go around the ground and just pick these up in parts of Oklahoma. And then there's this piece, which is, it was taken off the side of a mountain. This dark part here is the matrix. That was another stone it was connected to. But those, I just thought, so tied together with this whole idea of being out in the desert and being with our cactuses. So now we're going to do the meditation that I do every day when we light the candles. We light these candles to help focus our own consciousness and to appreciate how, when we join together our intentions with like minded beings, we are prepared to move Gaia, Mother Earth, and into the new Earth and emerging planetary patterns. First, by centering each individual's vibes with the coming times, and then by living with awareness of our own strengths, and that is part of the energy for the new Earth. We will feel free to romp and play in uncharted seas. And get you going here, Dorothy.
Right.
You've got a very traditional cactus shape. Okay, now I'm going
Love
to
it.
come over and um, say that the two ideas that were in the back of my mind when we're coming up, Dorothy and I discussed this backstage, but at equinoxes and solstices, the ley lines of Earth energy get straight. 4 times a year, the Earth cleans up its act and gets all its little lines in a row. So maybe it's something we should also be doing, getting
Yes.
our minds in a row. And right now, I'm going to let Dorothy loose on this because the planets that have been moving hard over all of us. I began to feel it 3 weeks before we even started taping this. And in
Mhm.
this time, normally it gives me insomnia and I get a lot of stuff done because I don't sleep. This time I have been sleeping all the time. And so It hits everybody a little differently. It may not hit you the same way, and it may not hit you in the same time frame exactly. But we have so much change going on, and that thing about moving to a new earth, we really are moving into a new earth. So I'm going to let
Yeah,
Dorothy go and
I know.
explain. Now
Well,
you just
thank
tell us all
you.
why this happens, Dorothy.
It's the astrology of it. But you know, when we were talking backstage, you were like romping, right? And I went to the thesaurus, and this is a word I don't use romping, but I use the word frolicking because
Mm-hmm.
I used to frolic as a little kid. When was the last time you did that, right? Is a
Mm-hmm.
question I want to pose to everybody. And when we get to the solstice on the 20th, I mean, just 12 hours later, we have a new moon in Aries as well, because the
Mm-hmm.
solstice is the moment that the equinox, sorry,
I know I
I
keep
always
getting
say
them mixed up
you
too.
do. The equinox is the time when the sun is at 0 degrees of Aries. And again, just 12 hours later, we have a new moon in Aries. So this is like new things and being born again, and a new fresh energy is available
Mm-hmm.
to us all. So when you hear romping, and you heard that, and uncharted seas, we have a ton of different things that really explain that. So I used to frolic in the fields chasing butterflies. I remember doing that with a butterfly net,
Mm-hmm.
like a little girl does, right? Or a little
Right.
boy.
Mm-hmm.
It was just do that. I want us to, at this equinox period, to consider the new things that you want to bring into life, and honestly think of them through the eyes of your child, of you when you
Mm-hmm.
were young and playing and frolicking and romping around and dancing and prancing and all of those things. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what we need to encourage. We have astrologically some really heavy hitters changing signs. Saturn went and shifted just a couple of days before we started this. Let's get that here. I'll get it for you. It was at the full moon. Saturn on March 7th, we had the full moon, and then Saturn shifted into Pisces on March 7th. And he's going to stay in that sign until February 14th, 2026. So almost 3 years, which is a little longer than normal. And so with this new shift, the reason this is important is just it's a new focus. What
Mm-hmm.
do we want to hone in on? One of the big things I heard when, like you do when you hear your words,
Mm-hmm.
I heard with Saturn and Pisces, is that this is about demystifying the spiritual stuff, demystifying the things that are unseen and unknown to us.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is going to really bring that forward. It's just like, if I know not everybody knows what the ocean is like, but the tide comes in and out. And here in New England, we have rocky shores and no beach at all. And there are times when the water is above all these massive boulders. And when the water goes out, then the boulders are free to walk out on, sit on, etc. That is Saturn in Pisces, where there is heavy, big, solid structures and foundations underneath the water that we don't get to see. Saturn's going to reveal these things to us. So that's just a visual for you. If you want, something's there, but you can't see it because there's
Mm-hmm.
something in the way. The time that Saturn is slowly moving through this sign of Pisces, we're going to have an opportunity over that 3-year period to really see what has been hidden from us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to, even again in our own world, demystify things, and bring we've been trying our whole clan, tribe, wherever you are, we've been trying to do that for years, and we have been doing it for years, but it's even more so we're going to see that. So that's what I saw, that's what I heard. There's plenty
Mm-hmm.
more with what Saturn and Pisces is about, but I've looked at my notes here too, but really clarifying that and just bringing a lot of things to the surface, so we're
Mm-hmm.
able to actually use this in everyday opportunities and
Right.
everyday activities. So we can take our practice as well, whatever our practices are, we can take them and not hide from it so much, if that's
Right.
something that you've been doing too, right?
Yeah.
Really bringing some of these things into the norm. And it could be so different too. I read this somewhere, I can't remember where, but you could be standing, somebody was just making an example, you could be standing next to somebody in the grocery store and really be in two different worlds. And so when people like yourself really talk about, the new earth and energy like that, ooh, something startled
That's
you. What was that?
I have you keep talking, Dorothy. I'm gonna go take care of the kitties. They're
You
not.
got to go check something out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can, we're in two different worlds, and that's just a real big thing. And so when we get to the spring equinox, which is on March 20th, that's going to happen. I guess Eastern time is the best way. It's at 5:24 p.m. Eastern time. Again, we're going to focus on initiating and beginning a lot of new things, and that's going to be really important. But I would like us to just wait. If you're really watching this and you really want to manifest and use the energy of this equinox, do whatever rituals are important, but it's definitely about, I got to let this go so I can bring something new in. And then bringing the new in isn't until the next day on March 20th, and Eastern time, it's at 1:23 p.m. So when we have a new moon in Aries, it's 0 Aries. We haven't had this in ages. This is like, boy, oh boy, get really self-focused, really get incredibly self-focused. The equinox is always like that. The one in Aries is always like this. It's about, what do I need? Right. And really hone in on that. Be selfish in a sense, just for a little while, because we have to stop, just putting ourselves, we have to stop being the martyr,
Right.
and stop being the victim, and start stepping into something else. If that resonates for you, that might not. And so we have that. And then it only takes 2 more days. So on March 23rd, Pluto enters Aquarius. Now that he's going to go back and forth quite a few times. So let's give you, we're letting go of an awful lot of things, because Pluto's in Capricorn right now. It's been in Capricorn since January 2008, right? It was in and out, but since early 2008, and it leaves March 23rd, 2023. That's a long time. Pluto has been breaking down a lot of the old structures. We all know what's been going on for years now, and it's breaking it down. Now that Pluto, once it gets into Aquarius, it's going to be in Aquarius a few times before it finally stays. These are important dates. March 23rd to June 11th, 2023. It will be in the sign of Aquarius, and then it leaves, and then it comes back in January 21st, 2024 through September 1st, 2024. Backs out again. I'm going to tell you what these things mean. And then on November 20th, 2024 through March 9th, 2043.
Yeah. It stays for a long time.
It stays for almost 20 years. It's 19 years for that last stint. Okay. So when we get to March 23rd, when we have this moment of shift, we're going from what we've been breaking down, even though we're going back to it. It's like, what's crumbling? What's breaking down? The whole globe, the whole planet. It's not just the United States. The whole planet is going through the breaking down of who's got the power, who's got the control, where the boundaries are, et cetera, et cetera. In Aquarius, we're creating new community. This is, like you said, this is about bringing community together. This is, we don't have to become one world. We don't have to be overly politicized with this, but we do have to see how we will be together as groups of people that resonate, vibrate. That's Aquarius. It's air. Those rigid lines are, the symbol are air, not water. And it is the air energy of being together and creating this new earth, this new vibration, which we've been working on a long time. It takes generations for this to really come through, right?
Right.
And
It's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow and everybody you want to see indicted is indicted, and everyone you want to see is on trial, or all that sort of stuff. Matter of fact, staying away from that energy is probably better for your mental health at this time.
it is. I stay away from it all the time. People are always saying, hey, do you know blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, nope, I don't.
And I'm just delighted.
I feel fine. They're like, oh, did you hear about this and that? No, I didn't. Don't tell me. And they keep going. It's like, no, I said, no, I really mean, don't tell me.
Yeah, it's like
I read. I take it in doses so I can read. And so
Right.
I am informed. I don't think I'm dumb, but I am informed.
Well,
So we have this,
reading your
mhm,
news makes you the filter,
right.
instead of
Yeah.
trusting a talking head.
Mhm.
And I've
Who
known
has
enough
an
talking
agenda?
heads to know that there's a lot of hollow in the back of them. So,
And there's an agenda, and they have an agenda, and they have to please whoever they're working for,
hmm
whatever that looks like, right? And so yeah, so the cause and effect of you know Saturn and Pisces is going to be bringing us into more of a community, and just feeling responsible for those who need
hmm
help and assistance, but not becoming a victim or the martyr, but doing it in a very practical way. So we have an opportunity to do that. That's, sort of, social and global, if you will.
hmm
And the same, and similarly with Pluto in Aquarius, it's, we have to think new. We have to think freedom and
hmm
independence. And the last time anything was at zero Aquarius that was of significance was during December of 2020. And that's when Saturn and Jupiter were conjunct at zero Aquarius. So
hmm
we actually need to take a look back. That's what astrology is. It's cycles and patterns and timing. And what was happens again at times, or reminds us of what was going on. So that area is activated by Pluto. We've known this all along.
hmm
I've always been paying attention to this. So when Pluto does get to this zero Aquarius, and again, it's going to do it a few times, and in over a year and a half, over almost 2 year period, things that were really begun. And it started actually in March of 2020
hmm
when Saturn entered Aquarius. But then in December of 2020, Saturn and Jupiter were at zero Aquarius, and we still living with repercussions of what the whole political system was like, what we
hmm
believed, what we didn't believe, freedoms, not feeling free, because in March of 2020,
hmm
shut down, can't do things. Pluto's there now. So I would say what freedoms are going to
Are
be
going to emerge.
challenged, or is going to emerge. Personally, let's bring it back to our person, especially since all of this is happening right
hmm
around this equinox time period. Taking your own personal responsibility for the steps that you're taking in your community that means something to you, because that's the biggest impact most of us can make. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, when you talked about Jupiter and Saturn on on the 0 degrees
Yeah.
Aquarius, the first stab I took at astrology was when I was in college, which was a
Hmm.
long time. They did have charts and planets and things even back then.
Hmm.
But
I know.
the guy who was teaching the class, he was an older gentleman, and he said, you guys are what, 17, 18 years old. He said, you may get a chance to see this. And he explained that's the first cycle I understood out of astrology. Every 200 years,
Hmm.
Jupiter and Saturn meet in
Mm.
a sign that's a different, uh, it's like earth, air,
Oh,
water.
yes, yes, yeah.
So,
Elements. Yeah, the different elements. That's correct. That's
the
right.
Jupiter and Saturn had met, were meeting in earth element. In earth element
Right.
every time except 1980 was the 1 year it didn't, and that's when that 10 years got ruled by electronics. That's when all the personal computers and all of the digital
Yeah.
age began. And then it went back into earth. But earth is where everything gets manufactured. That when Jupiter and Saturn met way back when,
Yeah.
that was sort of the beginning of the industrial revolution and man-made things and walking away from
Mhm.
being so tied to the real earth, to this thing
Yeah.
that became the man-made earth.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying that. So that night I went out, and
Mhm.
it was a cold night. Even if it was in Texas, it was cool that night. I went out and stood
Yeah.
in the middle of the golf course that's by me, where I could see the two of them together up there. And I said, yeah, I was told when I was 18 you
Mhm.
guys were doing this, so I'm going to watch. And people kept saying to me,
Yeah.
okay, if we're going from earth to air,
Hmm.
what's it going to feel like? I said, I don't know. All I've ever lived in is earth. That's kind of where we are
That's
now.
right.
I don't
It's
know. Well,
generational stuff too. It really is generational things where, you know, depending on where you are in your own chronological
mm-hmm,
age, if you're a youngster just being born, or within the
mm-hmm,
first 7 or 10 years, it's going to be very different than it is for us now, as we are
mm-hmm.
in our age groups.
Because we've been so planted in the ground, and
Yeah.
so it's if you want to have another way to look at astrology, there are these cycles There's the cycles
Wow.
of Venus where it makes a pentagram around us. It's all
That
kinds of
takes 8
things.
years.
Hmm.
Yep, that takes 8 years. I do regularly, I mean, not on my YouTube stuff because it's too intricate. I do it actually, I have a membership platform on Patreon. I use it there where I talk about the a lunar phase. It's called the lunar gestation
Hmm.
cycle. And I talk about that, and that's a 3-year phase that begins with every new moon. And we play with the 4 quarters, and it's called the gestation because where that
Hmm.
new moon is 9 months later, we have the first quarter in the same place.
Hmm.
9 months after that, we have a full moon in the same place. 9 months after that, it's the last quarter in the same place. 9 months after that, we're back to another new moon that starts the cycle again. So every new moon, this is beginning. So it's like a spider's web that's in a, and it
Hmm.
just continues. We have one cycle and pattern after another. Not every one of them means something. However, when we have something like this one at
Hmm.
0, this new moon coming up at the equinox at 0 Aries, that's super important. And I want to add to that, even though it's not quite part of this, at the on April 9th, the middle of the night, April 19th into April 20th, we have an eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries. So we have 2 new moons. It's a new moon eclipse. We have 2 new moons that are, people don't pay attention to that because it doesn't coincide with the calendar, this made up
Hmm.
calendar. Astrologically, new moon at 0 Aries, new moon at 29 Aries, and that 29 Aries new moon is an eclipse. Big news. I'll talk about that in my forecasts.
Yeah. And
So make sure
Dorothy
you're on my
does,
email list
if you sign up for her, she has Facebook presentation. She has YouTube things every day. She does YouTube
every
short,
day.
which is becoming
Yep.
everyone's favorite because, no offense, Dorothy, but astrologers can get a little windy. They keep going.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but
Hey, let me tell
hey,
you, just to respect 60-second video, which I do on my phone, but everything else that goes with it, because then
hmm.
I put it on
Oh,
Facebook and
it takes so
Instagram,
much time to get
half
it.
an hour. It's a half an hour for a 60-second short.
Well, anyway, so if you're
Good. It's
feeling
fun.
ill at ease right now, Dorothy just
Yeah.
told you which planets are nudging your butt. And, I was telling someone the other day that it's like, I have grown children, and when they were toddlers, how they can find their way on your last nerve of the
Hmm.
last nerve that you have.
Hmm.
And it's just real respect for not wanting to go to jail that those kids, could make it through, and that's what
Yeah.
I felt like with the planets. Just get a little bit closer. Take it
That's
out
what they
on them.
do when they're at 29 degrees. And that's where
Yeah.
Pluto is right now while we're recording. And even when you when you post this, it's still going to be at 29 degrees,
Yeah. Because
So
Dorothy's first day
yeah.
up, and we're just filming it a day before so I can get them up and
Mhm.
have them be in order.
Yeah.
This show, as you know, if you're here watching it and you want to know about the rest of the shows, they will be on at 6 p.m. Central Time. So you're going to have to adjust it. And then to make life even worse, we're going into daylight savings time. So we're getting that change happening the same weekend as I start this. But if you want to come see it, and
Automated.
these are going to be premieres, I don't know if Dorothy will be there, but I'll be there for the first showing and typing in what I can tell you. If you look below this recording, you'll see
Mhm.
all the ways you can find Dorothy Morgan, New
Mhm.
Hampshire astrologer, NH astrologer. And you live in such an
Mhm.
interesting place because it's a skinny little state, but you've got such an incredibly interesting coastline and
Yep.
and
The mountains.
the mountains. And I mean, I'm
Mhm.
really envious because I live in a place where you literally can, about an hour out, if you go west an hour from me, it just starts getting very flat and you can almost
I've
see
seen that. I've driven
Odessa.
across. I've, I used to live in New Mexico,
Oh,
and I've driven.
then
Yeah,
flat too.
I do.
Anyway,
I've lived across yeah, I've driven across Texas. It is forever. Oh.
it is, well, yeah, if you start in Houston and you're driving to California, by the
Mhm.
time you've gone through El Paso, well, by the time you've gone through to the New Mexico border, you're more than halfway to California. I know
There you
there's a
go.
lot of state here. Anyway,
There's a lot.
okay,
Awesome.
but
Thank
we're
you,
not going to
everybody.
bore you with the geography lesson. We're going to blow the candle out. And thank you, Dorothy, for coming
Thank
and
you for having me. Thank you,
helping me
everybody.
start off the cactus patch. And everybody go see Dorothy's stuff. It's great practical information and stuff we can use. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dorothy, for coming today. Goodbye.
Blessings to everybody.